Hello everyone. In this video, we will see the different ways on how to create a pod in Kubernetes. So let's get started. For this demo purpose, I have created a Kubernetes cluster in Azure and I have already logged in to this cluster using the Azure Cloud Shell. So here I can execute kubectl commands to interact with the Azure Kubernetes cluster that we have created. So now let's see the different ways on how to create a pod in Kubernetes. Like any other objects in Kubernetes, we can also create a pod in two different ways. One is by using the manifest files, and the other way is by using the imperative commands. So let's look at both the ways. First, let's start with the manifest files. So for that, let me create a file called pod.yaml. And for any manifest files in Kubernetes, the mandatory fields are API version, kind, metadata, and spec. So the API version is nothing but the API version that we'll be using for creating the pod. So for creating the pod, the API version will be V1. And next, coming to the kind. So since we are going to create a pod, so the kind should be pod here. So make sure you provide the capital P here instead of the small p. And then when it comes to the metadata, here we have to provide the information about the pod that we are going to create. For example, what should be the name of the pod? So in which namespace you are going to create the pod, etc. So let's start by providing the name of the pod, name colon. So let's give as Nginx. So here I'm going to provide the name as Nginx, and then I'll be providing the namespace. So let's provide that as dev-ns. So make sure this namespace is already created in this Kubernetes cluster before you create this pod. So in the previous video, we have already created this namespace. So if you haven't watched that video, please check that video. I'll be putting that link in this description of this video. And then we'll proceed with the other important field in the manifest file, that is the spec. So this is the place where we will specify about the containers and the application image that we are going to use for running inside the pod. So let's begin by writing the containers, and then let's give as hyphen. So this is the list. So in YAML, like if you specify this as hyphen, so it means the list. Then you can specify the list of containers that you want to run inside the pod. So let's proceed by providing the name. So let's give the container name as well as Nginx, and then let's provide the image name as Nginx colon and the tag as latest. So this is the Docker image. So we are going to provide the Docker image as Nginx and the tag is latest. So this is the application or the container that is going to run inside this pod. And let's provide the ports. So let me give the container port as 80. So that means the application, the container that is going to be running on port 80 inside this Nginx pod that we are going to create. So let's save this file. And before running this pod.yaml for creating the pod, let's just check whether the namespace is created or not. So for that, let's run kubectl get namespaces. So here you can see dev-ns. So this is the namespace that we have provided in the pod.yaml. So this is already existed. So let's run kubectl apply -f and then the name of the manifest file. So let's give that as pod.yaml. So this will create a pod in dev namespace. So here you can see the pod Nginx is created. So now let's list the pods that are available in the dev-ns namespace. For that, let's run kubectl get pods -n and let's give the namespace name as dev-ns. So -n is the flag that we are going to provide to specify the namespace name. So here you can see in dev-ns namespace, so we have only one pod, that is the Nginx pod that we have created using the pod.yaml manifest file, and the status is running and the age is 25 seconds. So in this way, using the manifest files, you can create a pod in Kubernetes. And now let's look at the other way, that is the imperative command. So we can also create the same pod in Kubernetes using the imperative commands instead of writing this whole YAML file. So for creating a pod using the imperative command, let's run kubectl run, and we have to give the name of the pod. So let's just give the name as Nginx2. So since the Nginx pod is already running, and this is created by the by using the manifest file, so I'm providing the name as Nginx2, and let's just provide the image that needs to be run on the container inside the pod. So --- image that is equal to Nginx, and the tag is latest, and let's provide the port as well, that is 80. So if you And one more thing that we have to mention is the namespace where we want to deploy this pod. So let's just give -n dev-ns. So this command will basically create a pod called nginx-2 in dev-ns namespace. So now let's list all the pods that are running in dev-ns namespace. kubectl get pods -n and let's provide the namespace name as dev-ns. So now you can see the Nginx pod 2 is also in running state, and it was created 23 seconds ago. So this one we have created using the manifest file, and this one we have created using the imperative commands. So in this way, we can create a pods in Kubernetes using the manifest file as well as the imperative commands. So before you leave, let's just delete these pods. So for that, let's use kubectl delete pod nginx-n, and the namespace is dev-ns. And let's just delete the other pod as well. Sorry, the name of the pod is nginx-2. So let's provide nginx-2. So using kubectl delete pod command, you can delete the pods using the imperative command, and you can also delete the pod using kubectl delete -f, and you can provide the manifest file as well, pod.yaml. So using this command as well, you can delete the pod that was created using the pod.yaml manifest file. That's it from this video, guys. In the next video, we'll see how to create a load balancer on top of these pods and how we can access the application running inside the pods using the load balancer.